cells don't rejuvenate, but they still cause inflammation, so they don't do anything beneficial. However, you can do things like taking antioxidants, eating antioxidant that will almost shave off or get rid of, scrubbing away the dead cells that are only causing inflammation. Of course, inflammation causes chronic pain, discomfort, sleep issues. This goes down the line.
Welcome to Exploring Mind and Body with Drew Tadia. Drew is an expert in nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, and more. And he wants to help you live a healthier, longer, and more active life. Now here's your host, Drew Tadia.
Welcome to another edition of Nationally Syndicated Exploring Mind and Body. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in, for being a part of our True Form Life community. We're coming at you with a brand new show. We appreciate whether you're listening on terrestrial radio across the country or as a podcast around the world. We certainly wouldn't be here without you. So stick around. We got all that coming up.
This is Exploring Mind and Body. Naturally improve your lifestyle one show at a time with your host, Drew Tadia.
I thought I'd jump on here and talk about tea. Because I'm a tea fanatic. That's it. So there's all kinds of benefits to tea. I know there's a lot of people that aren't like super tea fans or like super tea fanatics. But I thought maybe we could talk about it. Maybe we can get some conversions out there. I got green tea going on right now. So there's quite a few different benefits to tea, like unlimited amounts of tea. Like they used tea for generations, thousands of years. And I love tea. I'm like this crazy tea fanatic. I like the loose tea, but you still find good benefits. I don't think like the processing stage is all that different from tea bags, but sometimes that they put the tea bags, like the bags that they use aren't healthy or clean, if you will. So there's a lot of different things that we could go over about tea. So I'm just going to tell you my experience with tea. That you could actually take like a tea course and to be like a master tea person. I don't know what you call it. Master tea artist. And then there's also like a tea ceremony. And you know what is interesting to me is that it's interesting to me how long tea has been around for. And then there's so many different ways to go about not just consuming tea, but so you can actually burn your tea. Like if the water is too hot, you can burn your tea leaves, which isn't a good thing. I don't think a lot of people know that. So I usually just drink regular green tea without anything in it. You can add honey. I used to add honey. I don't add honey anymore because I don't need it. I don't really want it. And like we would consider honey a natural sweetener. But still, if you don't need the extra sugar, then there's no point in adding it. And then, so if you're going to add honey, just add like a half a teaspoon or maybe a teaspoon instead of like a whole heaping tablespoon, and then you drop it in a tiny cup. See, like, would you like some tea with your honey? So if you're going to use honey in your tea, try to use raw honey and also local honey if you could find local honey. So those are two options, like tea options that I would suggest. So that means it's unpasteurized, and then which means it's not heated at a high point. So if it's heated super high, then it kills a lot of the properties. That's the same thing with the tea. That's why you don't want to burn the tea leaves, because if you put the water too hot, you'll burn the tea leaves, and that will ruin some of the properties. I know there's like some tea kettles out there now that like will boil to a certain degree, which is kind of crazy to me. Like, would you like green tea? So it'll boil to green tea. And if you want, I just boil mine. I don't get all fancy. I boil mine on the stove. Cup of water on the stove, done. We also boil water to drink as well. So you could also put lemon. I don't do this too often, but you could also put a fresh squeeze of lemon in your green tea. Not like you need a demo of how to do that, but I don't do this very often, but sometimes I just change it up or spice it up a bit. You could do that. So that's a really nice option for tea. So I think like a lot of people, they don't drink tea. All they do is grab like a cheap Lipton tea or like that rose something, red rose. I don't want to like put these companies down. It's not like my recommendation or non-recommendation is going to change their business career, but you could find better quality teas that taste better. So I think a lot of people would just get the cheapest. They go to a hotel, they have like the cheap tea there, mass produced. They grab one of those, put it in their teacup, and don't really think much of it. And they think that's their tea experience, which I think is a bit disappointing because you can really enjoy a cup of tea. And like I drink tea every single morning, so I enjoy it, and there's different ways you can go about enjoying it. So green tea isn't just green tea. You can find different types of green tea, and I'm sure I know there's many more than the ones that I choose. But like I said, jasmine's one of my favorite, and then sencha, and then you have sencha it has roasted brown rice in there. It gives it a nice little flavor. So I really enjoy that. But there are tons of health benefits to tea, especially when it comes to antioxidants. But you can find tea for all kinds of different reasons, like health purposes. But I just wanted to mention, so if you're going to buy honey, try to stay away from the one. There's a guy that does really good Instagram videos. I'm sure he's on Facebook and YouTube, but I think he's called Flav City. And he does all kinds of research on GMOs and pesticides and what's sprayed. And he did this really interesting video about honey. And there's the little bears. Like the little bears are like patented, and they are they're patented, but they're also from. Don't want to put any countries down either, but they're from a cheap country that produces cheap products, and then their honey is sprayed with different kinds of pesticides, herbicides, and then there's very little health properties in it, and there's properties in there that can actually harm your health. So that is something to be aware of. If you're going to buy honey, don't go and buy the cheap ones, especially the ones in the little bear. I like the green teas in the morning, and then in the evening I'll have like lemongrass, peppermint, chamomile. I really like to get into our own teas. Like I kind of put our own blends together, and I put our own blends together, so especially for different health properties or health benefits. So I've considered getting into selling teas. So we actually went to Sri Lanka, which is where Lipton tea was originated from. Now don't quote me here specifically, but I'm pretty sure that Sri Lanka was taken over numerous times, but mainly because of their tea. And it was the British came over and they built a train, and it goes over, I think it was called the 7 Arch Bridge. I know I should be better at this since I was there. But 7 Arch Bridge is a famous bridge there. And then the train goes from one part of the island to the other. And I think it goes towards, it's on one side of the island is where most of the tea is. So we actually went to these tea plantations and saw them hand pick the tea, which was pretty cool. And then the train went from there all the way across to the other side where it was near a port, closer to where they were exporting the tea from. So it was pretty cool. That was a couple of years ago. Probably need to brush up on my history, but we actually went to, it's almost like where tea originated. It was kind of cool. Like different parts of Europe were like known for their tea, like English tea, for example. So, and I'm pretty sure that came from Sri Lanka or India or places like that because of the weather and because of how abundantly they can grow there. tea leaves. We actually saw the tea plantation. So actually, I really like David's tea. I don't typically go towards, and personally, I don't typically go towards any like specific tea company. I like to find like I was in Calgary probably a year or so ago, but I went to Chinatown and I went and grabbed like all these different teas, and I didn't even know what they were, which probably isn't a great idea, but I didn't even know what half of them were because there wasn't English writing, and I only read English on the packages. And then I went to T&T in Calgary one time. Same thing. I like to go down aisles, just grab some tea and try the tea. Like David's Tea is one like a special company. Like I think they do a really good job of their tea. And they actually they have a nut tea I really like. And then they have we were in New York, I think last year, Christmas time, and we went in and we had this amazing, it was like a turmeric carrot tea, and it was so good. I could eat it with a spoon. And then we went to David's Tea this year, and we asked for that tea, and they said it's discontinued. And I was like, what do you mean it's discontinued? It was like tea from the gods. Oh man, that's fun. I really like, speaking of different teas, like I really like a chamomile tea in the evening. I think you can find seems like you can find any type of tea ever. And I'd really like to get into more knowledge about specific teas. Like there's some teas that are super cheap and some teas that are much more expensive. I know like you could look at pu'er tea, and pu'er tea is super interesting to me. Pu'er is actually, I think it's in China. I'm not sure if it's in China or Japan, maybe Japan, but it's actually a town or city, a small town. I think it's a small town called Pu'er, and that's basically all they do is make pu'er tea. And it's just so interesting to me. But these are fermented leaves. Like the leaves are fermented for years. I think they could be fermented for 20 years, which sounds a bit crazy. Like I don't know how you do that, but I think they do that with wine. I'm not a wine person, so I wouldn't know. But I think they, maybe even like whiskeys, and I don't know, those, I'm not an alcohol person, so I don't know any of that stuff. But I think they ferment the tea leaves for 20 years before and then pu'er tea is quite a bit different. Pu'er tea is like a cross between a black tea and a green tea. I don't think it's specifically one or the other, so people don't know what category to put it in. And I was reading one of Tim Ferriss's books. I think it was maybe Tools of the Titans, but he talked about how pu'er tea and green tea combined together suppresses certain cancer cells. So that's obviously interesting as well. And I was reading I'm reading this biohacking book, Dave Asprey, I think. So he talks about, I think, 4 pillars of death, basically, and you obviously want to prevent that. So one of them is like certain types of cancer. I don't talk about that too often for certain reasons, but I think you have a 40% chance of cancer, smaller percentage of diabetes, but I think diabetes is linked to heart disease. But then I think it's also linked to dementia, which is also one of the top 4 leading death causes. And then I'm pretty sure there's 1 or 2 more that he talked about. So then if you look at tea, for example, and antioxidants, they both fight those. Or the antioxidants in the tea fight those cells. And they also, I've been reading that they also help, like, they almost shave off. So we have almost dead cells that don't, like, we want our cells to regenerate is what we want. And I think it's so interesting. He said he wants to live till he's like 180, which I think is awesome. I've never heard that before. And he says you can reverse the aging. And I was like, I've never heard that before. And I always say, like, why do we expect to like age as we get older? Like we expect our health to decline, and we expect our like eyesight to decline, and like we just expect to get on pharmaceuticals as we age. And I don't think it has to be like that. So he's talking about rejuvenating cells. And the problem is some cells don't rejuvenate, but they still cause inflammation, so they don't do anything beneficial. However, you can do things like taking antioxidants, eating antioxidants that will almost shave off or get rid of. So I picture like scrubbing away the dead cells that are only causing inflammation. Of course, inflammation causes chronic pain, discomfort, sleep issues. It goes down the line. We literally have in my cupboard. I have dozens of jars just full of loose tea, and I'm like, I can't drink them fast enough. I'm like, I want to try this one and I want to try that one. So we're actually when we were at the tea plant in Sri Lanka, I think they were talking, and I don't remember specifically, but they were talking about how, I don't know if it was white tea or green tea, but all they did, they either let the leaves grow. I think they let the leaves on the plant grow longer. Dorothy could probably help me out with this. Or in the processing stage, they let it sit on the conveyor belt longer. I don't remember. But they all came from the same leaf, which was super interesting to me. There are certain people that would consider coffee healthy. For us, our standpoint is we don't recommend, but there are health benefits to coffee. I think the coffee industry isn't all that clean from because they don't pay their wages well, and then you have really low quality coffee. I think that that issue kind of bothers me a bit. In many cases, it's what you put in your coffee. A lot of people put tons of refined sugar. They put those creamers and flavoring. You put the extra cream, the milk cream in there. That stuff, it's really hard for our body to process that stuff. So coffee alone, if you have a fair trade, cleaner coffee, healthy coffee, it does have antioxidants. And some people, research has shown that they would consider coffee healthy. But when you ask us about coffee, because of what I just mentioned, and because we get so highly addicted to it, because there's withdrawal symptoms, we recommend staying away from coffee. So there you are. Look out, coffee lovers. Coffee lovers get so mad. It's not usually from our audience though. Our audience usually knows us and knows us. We come from a positive, caring mindset, but it's the random people that don't really know us, and they're like, how dare you talk about coffee like that? You have no idea what you're talking about. So don't get me wrong, we're always looking for different sides. Like I said, there's antioxidants in coffee without question. You can find better coffee. And if you have a cup, sure. But if you're getting Tim Hortons coffee, you're dumping a bunch of sugar in it, and you need 6 of them just to get through the day, it's probably not, that's probably not the best idea. I use my steeper. I don't even know that's what it's called. But I use that for my green tea. But I've tried to put matcha tea in, and it's such a fine powder, it goes right through. And I know there's a bunch of health benefits to matcha, but it's I don't know matcha. I know, I understand the benefits, but it tastes really bitter. And I tried it in hot water, and it's like a powder. It goes through my steeper, and it doesn't taste very good at all. And I think I think that's why a lot of people are like, oh, green tea or matcha tea, or they're just like, no thanks. I always feel like we can get better in life. And I feel like we're in a society where it's you should expect to age. And I really can't stand it with friends or family or people around me, or ever oh, well, you're getting older. And I'm like, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's offensive. I'm getting older, I'm getting better. I think we expect our health to decline when we're 60, 70, 80. So I thought it was so interesting when this guy was I'm gonna live, my goal is to live till I'm 180. That means that at 80 years old, you're not even half your life. It used to be we used to live a very short life. If we had any type of disease, if there was any kind of sickness in a village or a town, people would die at very young ages as children. They would die when they were like 25. I think the life expectancy age is continuing to get older and older. And people like here at the beach, I know they're 80 years old and they're playing beach volleyball. They're riding their bike, and then so think of that mindset because of the environment you're around. But then, like I know in Alberta, because there's less activity and the weather is colder, it's hard to get out and enjoy yourself. But I know people like as they get older, they hunker in and they're like, oh, it's time to retire. It's time to stop working. It's time to slow down. Like, what does that mean? Like, I need to slow down for what? What are you slowing down for? So, I'm really passionate about this subject, of course. And I want people to understand that you can regenerate cells and you can improve your health as you get older, instead of just expecting like, oh, well, I'm getting older, so may as well sit in this rocking chair and wait for death to arrive. Like, like it's not like it's a mindset. Like of course it's like one person says that they're 30 years old and they're like, oh, I'm gonna, like, we saw it in high school. We were like 25 years old and people were getting married, having kids. Nothing wrong with this. They buy a house, get married, have kids, then they're overweight, then they start to lose hair. And then the guys I played football with in high school, the kids that I played with the park at in junior high, they would sit on their couch and drink beer until midnight, and then they'd get up and go to work and hate their life. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that if that's what you want, but understand that there's a different way to live. So if you this was interesting. So I did this just yesterday. Picture someone that's 90 years old. Go ahead. Picture someone that's 90. So for me, like, I expect someone that's like a bit hunched over, they're skinny, they're frail, they don't really move. Maybe they're sitting in a chair or a walker. So I feel like that's what we envision of ourselves as we get older. And people don't want to age. Like, they don't want to get older. They don't want to age. Like, I don't, for sure. But I want to change my mindset. Like, I don't want to expect to like get decrepit and not be able to function properly as I get older. But there's things that we can do now to prevent these things. And if you're looking at, like, if you expect to live till you're like 70 or 80, great. Like, when you're 80, you probably are going to be in that stage of what most of us picture right now. However, if you expect yourself to live till you're like, let's get crazy, at like 150 years old, then you have to be. And just the last couple of days I thought about this, and I have like a different mindset. Like, I feel like almost that there's hope. Like, I don't have to like expect like, oh, well, I only have so many years left. But if you're not even close to half your age, like half of your age, like there's history that has shown people have lived till about 130 unofficially. Like 130 is a long time. So when you're 80 years old, you have a lot more time left. You don't have 5 or 6 years left if you take care of your health. But of course, that's a stretch. You tell that to most people and they think you should be stuck in a rubber room. I wrote a note here because I've never heard of it before. I was just doing research, and it's called ashitaba. Has anyone heard of that? So it's also good for digestive issues, and then some people use it for hay fever. But this is, some research has proven that it can help scrub off those dead cells that don't do anything, only cause inflammation. So I'm going to start taking that one. I'm going to start drinking that one. The difficult part with tea is that, like, I feel like anytime you work from like the inside out, so a lot of people like have chronic pain. So like, we know this, you like from some of our products, you put a cream on and it's great. Like, you can feel the benefits almost right away. I just read Anna's comment here. You can feel the benefits right away. But when it comes to when it comes to like teas, antioxidants, so like antioxidants fight free radicals. I don't know, I think many of you may have heard me talk about this before, but free radicals are some things that are out of our control. So like it could be the smog that we breathe in. It could be the stress that we're continually surrounded by that breaks us down and wears us down. It's definitely alcohol, tobacco, processed food, refined sugar. Those are all free radicals that tear our body down and makes us look older. They, like the sugar, causes an increase in osteoporosis. It eats at our bones, for example. I actually wrote this on my Instagram, and I said it's so interesting to me how people will look at the short term. Like they know that short term, maybe coffee with sugar in it, cookies, chips, that will give them a little boost of energy. Maybe that helps them get through the day. Like energy drinks, my gosh. If you want an instant disruption of your digestive system, drink an energy drink. That will do it every time. Even if you don't feel it immediately, that's going to disrupt a whole lot of things inside. So, but people will take that instant energy for a bit of relief so they can get through the day. And I can only imagine knowing that that's going to reduce their quality of life in the long term and shorten their years of life at the end. It's crazy. It's mind-boggling to me when I think about it. I'm like, that sugar that you're consuming daily is going to shorten your lifespan. And people are still like, nah, I'll deal with that now. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. Like sugar causes inflammation. It causes issues in our joints. Like I said, it eats at your bones. And people are still like, bring it. Let me put some sugar in my coffee. And they don't think about that. So it's a bit disturbing. Ashitaba tea is also known to help with gout. But try to tell someone to have Ashitaba tea that has gout and lives a certain way and eats a certain way, they're going to be like, something wrong with you. So anyways, I'm going to experiment. And what I was saying with the teas is like it builds from the inside out. And it like rejuvenates cells, but you can't actually feel your cells rejuvenating, and you can't see yourself looking younger. Like I'm pretty fortunate when people always like, oh, how old are you? When they know my age, they're like, oh my gosh, I thought you were 10 years younger. And I'm like, that's always a nice compliment. But it's because of the cell, like the food that we're putting in our body, and we try to live stress-free and we work out often. So there's all reasons for that. But like I said, people don't put those two together, and we're looking for instant results. So you're like, oh, this tea is going to help rejuvenate some cells. Well, if I don't see it personally, then I'm not going to keep doing it. That's what I got for you. I did want to talk about tea more, but I always get on like different tangents. I used blueberry tea, BLUR, blueberry tea in the past. That helps with your eyesight. I use chicory root tea that helps with digestion. I mean, it's just endless. Have a wonderful day. Happy tea drinking. Enjoy your plain tea. Take care, everyone.
All right, that's going to wrap things up for this edition of Exploring Mind and Body. Once again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in and being a part of our True Form Life community. You can always find us on Facebook.com/TrueFormLife. We post up there a couple times a day on our story. We're always trying to bring you more content around living a healthy lifestyle, whether that be nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, and more. We also have free challenges that we do at least once a month. So if you follow us along there, you'll be able to join maybe a plank challenge or a squat challenge, Tabata challenge, whatever it may be. We'd love to have you join us. We're also on Instagram.com/DrewTadia. Again, we're posting up there a couple times a day along with our story, all dedicated to keeping you fit and healthy and on track. Our main website is TrueFormLife.com. If you want to check out some of our products, some of our services, or if you just want some great content from videos to blog posts and recipes and more, we got all that at TrueFormLife.com. Once again, thank you so much for being here. That's it. That's all I got. I'm out of here. As always, I'm your host, Drew Tadia, in health and fitness for a better world. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Exploring Mind and Body with Trueform Life's Drew Tadia, fitness expert. To find out more about the show, Drew Tadia, or to listen to past shows, visit exploringmindandbody.com.